Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and let's get right into it. So in this video, this is the next video in the do category of the be, do, have model for crushing interviews, all right? So if you haven't seen the previous videos, it's totally fine. You don't necessarily have to watch them in the order that they were uploaded. However, I do strongly recommend it because I feel like they'll make the most sense if you watch them in order. That being said, let's get right into it. So we started the do section by going through how to effectively research the program to gather the pertinent data to ask the questions that you should be asking in your interviews and how to prepare so that you look like you know what you're talking about. Then we moved on to the best way to answer questions using the STAR method. And now in this video, we will be talking about virtual interviews and how to put your best foot forward. So you absolutely crushed it. You have an interview, you're good to go. You read up on the program, you made some notes, you have your arsenal of stories ready to go, just waiting to be pulled out whenever somebody asks you a question. And now what? As it turns out, your interview is virtual. How do you make sure that you put your best foot forward? It can be really difficult to convey your personality over a screen. It's hard to create that connection. So what are you gonna do? Well, first of all, you're gonna watch this video. We're gonna go through all the essentials and we're gonna talk about the bare minimum things that you absolutely have to make sure that you have ready to go before your virtual interview. So let's go. I can guarantee that this is extremely important. This is now my third year going into interviewing candidates for our residency program, and our interviews are virtual. So I can really see that there is a significant need for people to be aware of the best practice techniques, if you will, when it comes to interviewing virtually. So we're gonna go through all of them. The very first being lighting, okay? One of the most important things is lighting, all right? So best case scenario, you wanna make sure that you have natural light, okay? So that is the absolute best thing you could do. Ideally, you would want to put your camera right in front of a window because that's the most flattering light, quite frankly. Now, in certain situations, like let's say, for example, let's say that you're attending this virtual interview from across the pond, and given the time difference, it is nighttime, wherever you may be, or you may just not have access to, I guess, a window with good light. So in that scenario, you may want to make sure that you have a good source of artificial light. It's not very tough to do. They're relatively inexpensive options that are available online, whether it's a ring light or whether it's some sort of other diffusing light. Essentially, you want to make sure that the light that you have diffuses. It's very soft. That's the most flattering light that you can put yourself in. It's very soft, natural, diffused light. Having harsh light, it's not bad. Ultimately, you want to make sure that people can see you. But best case scenario, obviously everyone wants to look their best, and that's the lighting that makes us usually look our best. The next thing is camera setup. All right, so you want to make sure that you keep your camera at eye level, okay? You want to make sure that your camera is eye level. Really want to pierce into those eyes. The next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that where you're standing, you want to make sure that you're kind of midway, like right in the middle of the frame. Now, if you're not exactly right in the middle of the frame, it's not really a big deal, but it does look the best and it looks the most professional. Having that sort of eye contact really helps create and build that connection from one screen to another. Another thing is, obviously it's difficult to keep things at eye level if you don't have a tripod. So I would strongly recommend using a tripod where you can just fix your phone or your device, whatever it may be, to the tripod. If that's not feasible, I'm sure you have tons of books lying around, and most of us have our USMLE first aid books. Just stack those bad boys up and just try to make sure that your eye level, use whatever you have to. It really doesn't even have to be a tripod, just whatever essentially that you can get your hands on that will be stable and make sure you're in a good position. The other thing is, when it comes to camera, you want to make sure that if you're going to be using your computer or your laptop or even your phone, you want to make sure that those cameras are up to snuff. So what that means is you want to make sure that you have the best quality visual as possible. Like, it doesn't have to be like movie star quality lenses, and it doesn't have to be crystal clear, but they do have to be reasonably good quality. You don't want to have blurry footage or it's like something that's grainy. It's difficult to tell expressions. People won't be able to really get a taste of your personality because they won't be able to really see your expressions in their full glory. And there are fairly inexpensive options out there. So I would recommend trying it out, testing out your cameras that you have available. And if those cameras aren't the best option, I would strongly recommend getting an external web camera so that when it comes to your big day, you are really able to put your best foot forward. The third thing is background. So you want to make sure that the background that you have already right here, it's clean, it's precise. Really, your background says a lot about you. I'm sure you can tell a lot about me from my background right here. You can see that I like books, that I like plants, I clearly like the movies, like Avengers.
Avengers! Assemble.
With the Lego right there, I like art. You know, you can tell, you obviously know what color I really like. So a person's background tells a lot about them. The simplest thing to do, quite frankly though, if you don't want to put that much thought into it, is just make sure it's a simple, clean backdrop, maybe against like a white wall, something very simple and clean. And if that's not really feasible, you know, just based on how your room is set up or whatever the case may be, you can also try to use one of the virtual background options that are available. Some places use Zoom as their platform, other places use WebEx. So whichever platform it is that you're using, you want to play around with that platform and see what other virtual background options there are available. When it comes to virtual backgrounds, so in these scenarios, less is definitely more. You really don't want to have like a super animated backdrop because it can get really distracting and come off as being a little unprofessional. The best thing to do is perhaps either blur your background out or just find a picture of either an office setting or a similar sort of professional setting and then just upload it and use it as a virtual backdrop. And that's the best thing to do. So the next thing is sound quality, all right? So this is just as important to optimize. If we can't hear you, that's gonna be really difficult to learn more about you if we really can't hear you. So there are some relatively inexpensive microphone options that are available. You can find those online, anywhere truly, but you don't really have to. You just want to make sure that whatever you're using, whether it be your computer or your phone or whatever it may be, your iPad, yada, 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 computer, you want to just make sure that the microphone capabilities are very clear and pristine so that the listener can hear what you're saying in a very clear fashion. And the other thing is that you really want to minimize as much of the background noise as possible. You know, in some situations, it's not really always possible. You know, there are some scenarios where there's children in the house or there's pets, and it's not always possible to do, but just try your best. Close the windows, close the doors. You know, things do come up, things happen. However, just try your best to minimize as much background noise as possible. Number 5. Internet connection. This is very important. So wherever possible, I would strongly recommend using Ethernet connection rather than Wi-Fi. That really optimizes your chances of making sure that you have a stable connection. The last thing that you want is for your connection to go out right as you're in the middle of this great conversation with an interviewer. It is so frustrating if that were to happen. It's not the end of the world, obviously, but it really does put you at a disadvantage, and it has happened to some of our interviewees in the past, and you know, it just sucks. So I would make sure that you run a speed test, make sure you have the highest quality internet available, close out all your browsers, close out everything, okay? Make sure that you are optimizing as best as you can to make sure that you can get the highest quality of video possible based on your internet, all right? Number 6, all right, dress for success. So this should go without saying, but a virtual interview is the same as an in-person interview. Make sure that you dress professionally. So you don't want to show up with just the top half being dressed professionally and the bottom half being dressed in pajamas, because you know, things may happen. You may get up for some reason, and if you know, we see your pajama bottoms or anything else, it kind of just looks a little silly, and perhaps that you know, you didn't really put 100% in. I want to make sure, I would really recommend, if you're going to wear a suit, wear wear the top and the bottom. Make sure you're fully dressed as if you're going for a real in-person interview. That's the best thing that you can do for yourself. I would not dress down at all just because it's an in-person interview. You know, I've had some people show up to our virtual interviews in basically one of the women in a top that didn't really come off very professional. It was not like really a professional blouse. There was no suit jacket. It just didn't come off very professional. So to me, that indicated that this person wasn't very interested or valued our program that much. I would say the same thing for another gentleman who, you know, he did wear a tie, so that was a good look, but you know, he wasn't really dressed to impress, I would say. And I would say you definitely should dress to impress. If you want, I can make a video regarding fashion, but no, I'm just kidding. Just more like what you should and shouldn't wear for interviews. But like, if you guys are interested, I can make another video on that. We won't go into it, but basically dress to impress. You don't need to overdo it, but just because it's a virtual interview doesn't mean that you dress down in any way, shape, or form. Dress exactly like you would head to toe as if you were walking into a live in-person interview. Number 7, practice and preparation. Like I said before, if you fail to prepare, you will prepare to fail. That is one of my personal mantras, as you can probably tell, but I would strongly recommend that you get to your room or your desk, wherever you're planning to do this interview, set up and be ready to go 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes prior to when the interview is supposed to start. Make sure everything's set up, make sure the internet's working properly, make sure the camera's working properly, make sure the sound is working effectively, make sure every single aspect that you can possibly control is under control. Obviously, things happen. No one's saying that it has to be perfect, and despite our best efforts, sometimes things just do not go according to plan, and honestly, that's okay. People will understand. It's fine. However, it's often also very clear that an individual has, you know, if there are certain things that could have easily been done to avoid the situation, that is just a bad look. So try your best as much as possible to ensure that you have a very smooth interview experience. Again, it's very difficult to convey all the nuances of Zoom interviews through a single video just because everyone's so different. So if you're interested on a one-on-one with me, feel free to DM me or anything like that, and I can let you guys know about the packages, and I will personally work on your interviewing skills with you one-on-one. I really hope this video was really helpful. I personally feel like, you know, a lot of these tips are something that a lot of people that are currently interviewing could benefit from. So I really hope that this is useful for you as well. And I'll catch y'all in the next one. Bye.